What if I told you that something as simple, as private, and as common as daily masturbation could have a profound impact on your prostate health, either healing it or hurting it? I'm Dr. Mark Hyman, and over the last 30 years as a functional medicine doctor, I've treated thousands of men, many of them in their late 50s, 60s, and beyond, who've struggled silently with prostate issues they thought were just part of aging. But what if they're not? Let me tell you about one of my patients, Greg. He's 67, a retired mechanic from Toledo, Ohio. Greg came to see me not because of pain or cancer, but because he was waking up 4, sometimes 5 times a night to pee. He was exhausted, embarrassed, and worst of all, he had stopped being intimate with his wife out of fear and shame. He assumed it was just aging. But what we uncovered changed everything. Most men don't talk about their prostate. It's not exactly dinner table conversation. But the truth is, by the time you hit 60, more than half of us will have some form of benign prostatic hyperplasia, BPH. That's just a fancy name for an enlarged prostate. It's not cancer, but it feels like something's broken. Urine stream weakens. The urgency comes at the worst times. And the intimacy you once enjoyed, it starts to feel like a chore, or worse, a distant memory. Now, here's the kicker. Few men realize that something as natural as ejaculation, whether through sex or masturbation, may actually play a protective role. But more on that later. In Greg's case, it wasn't just the physical symptoms that bothered him. It was the fear. Is this the start of something worse? Will I need surgery? Will I ever feel normal again? These questions are real. They haunt millions of men, and yet most stay silent, hoping it'll just go away. But you deserve better. You deserve answers. Because understanding your prostate, what it does, how it changes with age, and what you can do about it can give you your life back. Just like it did for Greg. When Greg first walked into my office, he carried more than just a health concern. He carried years of frustration, shame, and silent suffering. Like many men, he had no idea what his prostate even did until it started interfering with his sleep, his intimacy, and his identity. And what surprised him most, it wasn't some fancy treatment or surgery that helped him turn things around. It was understanding the role of regular ejaculation and how it directly influences prostate health. Now, let me be clear. This isn't about promoting reckless behavior or oversimplifying complex issues. This is about biology. See, your prostate is a small gland about the size of a walnut, tucked just below the bladder. Its main job, to produce the fluid that carries sperm during ejaculation. And here's where it gets fascinating when that fluid builds up over time without being released. It can increase pressure, inflammation, and even stagnation within the gland. Studies suggest that regular ejaculation, yes, even through masturbation, can actually help flush out old prostatic fluid, reduce inflammation, and possibly lower the risk of prostate cancer. Some research has even shown that men who ejaculate 21 times or more a month have a significantly lower risk of developing prostate cancer compared to those who do so less frequently. Greg was stunned. You mean, he asked, half laughing, this thing I felt guilty about might actually help me? I nodded. And not only that, we began pairing this new understanding with lifestyle shifts, more hydration, pelvic floor exercises, and stress management to maximize the benefit. Within weeks, Greg wasn't waking up 5 times a night anymore. He was sleeping through till morning, had more energy during the day, and for the first time in years, he and his wife were reconnecting not just physically, but emotionally. He wasn't just managing symptoms, he was getting his life back. What this showed me, and what I've seen again and again, is that when men are given permission to talk openly about their health, especially around taboo topics like masturbation, healing becomes not only possible, but powerful. There's no shame in understanding your body. In fact, it's the first step to reclaiming control over it. The body isn't broken, it's communicating. And for Greg, what started as a frustrating nuisance became the very thing that led to one of the most profound turnarounds of his life. There's a moment I'll never forget. Richard, 74, sat across from me, tears in his eyes. "Doc," he whispered, "why didn't anyone ever tell me this?" What he was referring to wasn't a complicated procedure or a new drug. It was the powerful relationship between testosterone, sexual health, and self-worth, and how it all connects to something as simple, yet misunderstood, as regular release. Let me walk you through what I shared with Richard, and what I've explained to hundreds of patients since testosterone is the primary male hormone responsible for libido, muscle mass, energy, and mood. But as we age, testosterone levels decline naturally, roughly 1% per year after age 30. By the time a man hits his 60s or 70s, he may be running on just half of what he had in his prime. Here's where things get tricky. Many men assume they've lost their manhood simply because they don't feel the same drive or strength they once did. But what I've seen and what research supports is that certain habits can actually help maintain or even elevate natural testosterone levels. Regular sexual activity, including masturbation, stimulates the release of testosterone and promotes hormonal balance. I told Richard, this isn't about shame or embarrassment. It's about how your body works. The act of sexual release triggers a cascade of hormonal responses that benefit far more than just the reproductive system. It helps regulate sleep, sharpen focus, and even protect against depression. But what happens when men suppress that urge completely out of guilt, misinformation, or fear of judgment? The body starts to suffer in silence. Testosterone production dips further. Motivation drops. Muscles weaken. Sleep suffers. And a cycle of emotional and physical decline sets in. After understanding this, Richard decided to reframe how he viewed intimacy, not as a shameful indulgence, but as a vital part of self-care. We paired this with other changes: short-strength workouts, omega-3 rich foods like salmon and walnuts, and mindful breathing before bed. 3 months later, Richard walked back in with a spark I hadn't seen in years. "I feel awake again," he said, like someone flipped the switch back on. That's when I knew for so many men, the difference between decline and revival isn't always medication, it's understanding. When you align with how your biology is wired, you don't fight your body, you work with it. And sometimes, all it takes is someone finally telling you the truth you were never supposed to hear. When I first met Jerry, a retired Navy engineer from Florida, he carried himself with pride, broad shoulders, a firm handshake, the kind of man who always stood tall. But beneath that sturdy exterior, he was hurting. "Dr. Hyman," he said softly, "I haven't had a real night's sleep in months. And honestly, I can't remember the last time I felt like a man." Jerry was 68 and struggling with something many men his age silently endure, erectile challenges that began creeping in as sleep became shallow and fragmented. He had tried the usual suspects, blue pills, herbal teas, even sleeping meds. Nothing seemed to bring him back to himself. So I asked him a question. Most doctors don't tell me about your nights, your routine, your mindset, how you wind down. He looked puzzled. What does that have to do with erections? He asked. I smiled. Everything. You see, most of your body's hormonal repair happens during deep sleep. It's when your testosterone gets a boost, when blood vessels recover, when your nervous system shifts from stress mode to healing mode. But if your body never truly rests, none of that repair happens. I introduced Jerry to a simple but powerful bedtime ritual, something I call the restoration routine. It's not about pills or complicated supplements, just a few intentional steps. A cup of warm water with a splash of tart cherry juice for natural melatonin. A tablespoon of pumpkin seeds, rich in zinc and magnesium, 2 minerals crucial for testosterone production. 10 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing while lying flat. Hands on his belly, breathing in for 4 counts, out for 6. And absolutely no screens or news 1 hour before bed. We also addressed his mindset. I encouraged him to release the shame he'd attached to his body's changes. Jerry, I said, your body hasn't betrayed you. It's just asking for something different now. Within 2 weeks, his sleep improved. Within a month, he reported morning firmness that had been missing for years. It's like my body finally remembered how to be itself again. He told me, eyes wide with surprise. And that's when I realized erectile health isn't just about what you do during the day. It's about what you allow at night. Rest is not a luxury. For men over 60, it's the foundation of vitality. Your nervous system, your hormones, even your circulatory system, they all synchronize when you sleep well. Jerry's story is now one I share with many patients, not because it's extraordinary, but because it's repeatable. When you honor your body's need to restore itself at night, you don't just wake up rested, you wake up renewed. So, the next time you think you've tried everything, ask yourself, have you truly given your body the rest it needs to heal? I want to tell you about someone who changed my perspective, Frank, a 72-year-old Vietnam veteran from Denver. He'd been taking erectile dysfunction medication for over a decade. Doc, he chuckled, I've got a drawer full of pills, but I still don't feel like myself. That sentence stuck with me. Frank wasn't just talking about his body. He was talking about the deeper truth many men over 60 face the loss of autonomy. He was tired of depending on something that sometimes worked, sometimes didn't, and often came with side effects like headaches, flushed skin, or a pounding heart. So I asked him, what if we shift from chasing quick results to restoring your foundation? That's when I introduced him to something simple, beetroot juice. Now, this might sound too good to be true, but let me explain why it works. Beets are one of the richest natural sources of dietary nitrates. Your body converts these nitrates into nitric oxide, a molecule essential for relaxing and expanding blood vessels. This allows blood to flow more easily, especially to areas that need it most during intimacy. It's not about forcing the body, it's about reminding it how to work the way it used to. I told Frank to start with just 8 ounces of fresh beetroot juice every morning, preferably on an empty stomach. For men who don't love the taste, I suggest blending it with lemon or a little ginger to smooth it out. We paired this with a 15-minute walk after breakfast. Nothing fancy. No gym membership. Just movement to stimulate circulation and support nitric oxide production naturally. After 3 weeks, Frank returned for his checkup. He looked lighter, happier. "Doc," he said, "I didn't just get my mornings back. I got my confidence back. I feel like I'm participating in my health again, not just reacting to symptoms." That's the real difference between a natural remedy like beets and a pharmaceutical quick fix. Pills override your body. Beets rebuild it. Pills might give you a spark. Beets help you rebuild the fire. And for older men, that shift is everything. Because it's not just about the act. It's about regaining control, self-respect, and energy. Now, I'm not saying beets are magic, but they are powerful. And when combined with small daily habits, better sleep, light exercise, less sugar, the results often surprise even the most skeptical of men. Frank now shares his story with other veterans, not to brag, but to encourage. He says, "If I can make this change after 72, so can you." And I believe him. I've seen it over and over again. If you're tired of relying on pills, maybe it's time to try something that actually works with your body, not against it. A few months ago, I met a retired mailman from Iowa. His name was Harold, 68 years old. He walked into my office holding a piece of paper filled with questions. At the top, scribbled in bold letters, "Can I do this if I'm on medication?" That's a concern I hear all the time. Most men over 60 are managing conditions like high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, or even early-stage heart disease. It's only natural to wonder if something as potent as beetroot could interfere with your existing treatments. So I sat Harold down and told him what I've told hundreds of men. In most cases, not only is it safe, it may actually help your medication work better. You see, the dietary nitrates in beets improve the function of your blood vessels, making them more elastic, responsive, and efficient. That means better circulation, lower blood pressure, and improved oxygen delivery throughout the body. And in some cases, men find they need less medication over time, not more. But the key: consistency. Harold started a simple morning ritual: 8 ounces of beet juice, a handful of pumpkin seeds for zinc and magnesium, and a 10-minute stretch on his back porch while the sun came up. Within 2 weeks, his energy was up. His blood pressure had dropped slightly, and he reported stronger morning erections. He was blown away, not just by the physical results, but by how quickly his mindset shifted. "I feel hopeful again," he said, "like I'm doing something with my body instead of just managing decline." That's the power of natural strategies. They don't compete with your medications, they often complement them. And if you're still wondering, what if I'm already on ED drugs like sildenafil or tadalafil? Good question. Beets work on a different biological pathway. ED meds temporarily open up certain blood vessels by inhibiting an enzyme. Beets stimulate your body's natural nitric oxide production, improving the entire vascular system. The result: many men who pair the two find they can reduce their dosage or eventually stop relying on pills altogether. But there's one more question I get constantly. How long will it take to feel a difference? I always say, give it 3 weeks. In that window, most men report improvements not just down there, but in energy, sleep, and mood. Why? Because better circulation improves everything. Still, there's a catch your nighttime routine. That's what we'll tackle next. Because if you're not supporting your body while you sleep, you're missing half the puzzle. One late evening, I received a quiet voicemail from a man named Leonard. He was 70, recently widowed, and his voice trembled just a bit as he spoke. Doc, I've been drinking the beet juice like you said. I feel a little better. But the mornings, they're still hit or miss. Is there anything I can do at night? That message stayed with me. Because Leonard wasn't just asking about physiology, he was asking about peace, about reclaiming a rhythm in life that had slowly slipped away. And I knew exactly what he needed. You see, what you do during the day is only half the story. The other half, arguably more powerful, happens while you sleep. That's when your body repairs tissues, restores hormone balance, and produces growth hormone critical for circulation and recovery. But none of that can happen if your nervous system is in overdrive. So I crafted a simple nighttime routine for Leonard. 1 cup of warm water mixed with a teaspoon of tart cherry juice for natural melatonin and anti-inflammatory effects. A tablespoon of pumpkin seeds for zinc and magnesium, both essential for testosterone and nerve health. And most importantly, 5 minutes of deep, slow breathing before bed. He called me back 10 days later. His voice had changed. Doc, he said, I woke up firm 3 days in a row. But that's not even the best part. I'm sleeping deeply again. I feel calm, like my body's finally on my side. That, to me, is the real win. Because, for years, most older men live in survival mode, taking pills during the day, battling symptoms, enduring restless nights. But when you pair circulation-boosting habits like beets with deep, nourishing sleep, something shifts. Your body starts healing on its own timeline, in its own way. You're no longer forcing results. You're building a foundation. And if you're watching this right now thinking, could this really work for me? I want you to remember Leonard, a widower, grieving, skeptical, but willing to try. Because healing isn't about perfection, it's about rhythm. And when you create that rhythm between day and night, between action and rest, your body responds. But before we finish, there's one last thing we need to discuss. Pills versus plants, quick fixes versus long-term health. What really matters in the end? Let's look at that next, because the truth may change the way you think about erections forever. A few years ago, a man named Richard walked into my clinic carrying a small duffel bag filled with prescription bottles. He dropped it on my desk and said with a half smile, Doc, I've tried it all. These cost me a fortune, and I still don't feel like myself. Richard was 66, a retired commercial pilot, and he looked exhausted not from the flights he no longer took, but from the weight of relying on pills that promised results and rarely delivered. And I knew exactly what he meant. See, erectile dysfunction medications are like flipping a switch. They artificially push blood to one area for a short time. But when that wears off, the deeper issues remain: fragile blood vessels, low nitric oxide, shallow sleep, emotional stress. Pills don't address any of that. So I asked Richard to try something different. No promises, just a shift. We replaced his morning pill routine with 8 ounces of fresh beetroot juice, a short 20-minute walk, and that simple nighttime ritual of tart cherry juice, pumpkin seeds, and deep breathing. 3 weeks in, he called me. I didn't expect this. He said, I'm waking up with energy. I'm laughing more. I even booked a weekend trip with my wife, first time in years. Richard wasn't just getting erections again. He was getting himself back. Because, here's the real truth. Erectile health isn't about one part of your body. It's about your entire life. Your blood vessels, your sleep, your stress, your confidence. It's a symphony, not a solo. And that's where nature has the upper hand. Beats don't force anything. They nourish. They rebuild. They restore flow, not just in your arteries, but in your mindset. There's no crash, no side effects, just a quiet return of something you may have forgotten you were missing. And that's why, after decades as a physician, I trust food more than pharmaceuticals when it comes to healing from the inside out. If you're still watching, I want you to know this. You're not too old. You're not broken. You don't need to depend on pills forever. Sometimes, the most powerful medicine comes from your fridge, not your pharmacy. In the final moments of this journey, I want to leave you with a message, a quiet, heartfelt reminder from me, not just as your doctor, but as someone who's walked beside thousands of men just like you. Because you deserve to feel strong again, and your story, it's not over. After spending over 3 decades sitting across from men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, I've learned that healing doesn't always look like a miracle. Sometimes, it's as quiet as waking up with a little more energy. Sometimes, it's the courage to pour a glass of beet juice instead of popping another pill. And sometimes, it's choosing to believe just for one more day that change is still possible. Erectile health is not just about sex. It's about identity. It's about feeling alive, feeling strong, and feeling connected. Too often, men suffer in silence, believing they're past their prime, that their best days are behind them. But I'm here to tell you they're not. You are not defined by what you've lost. You are defined by what you choose to reclaim. Every man I've worked with, whether it was Jim, who started walking again with his wife, or Richard, who packed away the pills, shared one thing in common. They made a choice. A small one, but a meaningful one. To care, to act, to believe. Beats may seem simple, but in the right context, they are a symbol of something far more profound, your body's ability to heal when given a chance. So take the walk, drink the juice, breathe deeply, sleep well, laugh freely. Because the truth is, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep showing up for yourself. And if you've made it this far, maybe today's the day you say, "Yes, I'm ready." I'll be right here, cheering you on. Dr. Mark Hyman, MD.